By the end of Arcane Season 1, Violet and Caitlyn were left in an ambiguous position. Even though all the events presented during the show brought them closer and closer together against all odds, Violet still ended up questioning a possibility of them ever ending up together.
What about us? Oil and water. Was it meant to be?
Which left us wondering, did they really not belong? Are they oil and water? Was this all for nothing? Or did the creators leave hints for us? Hints that perhaps mean we don't need to worry at all because they are, in fact, meant to be? Arcane is a show that heavily relies on its visuals just as much as it relies on its script. One can potentially watch it without any sound and still understand story's essentials. Who's the villain? Who's the protagonist? What is their conflict? Characters' body language and overall coloring palette make it clear and symbolic. Therefore, if you follow show's hints scene by scene, by the end of this video, you shouldn't be wondering if Violet and Caitlyn are meant to be together. What makes the relationship complex and interesting is not only the circumstances they found themselves in and undeniable chemistry, but also their backgrounds. A classic conflict of classes. In a very much prime way, they aren't meant to be together, they don't belong together. Every single odd is against them. Caitlyn was raised in luxury. She grew up being counselor's daughter, Piltover's upper class. She'd go hunting for entertainment, not survival. She's surrounded by flowers, classical music, elegant food. She's protected. There's not a thing that wouldn't be provided for her as she needed it. Violet, on the other hand, was born in the Undercity. After having lost parents, both her and her sister were raised by Vander, who did provide for them and did surround them with love, but not nearly in the same way Caitlyn's parents were able to. Violet also had to learn to provide for herself, protect herself and her little sister. She grew up thinking she isn't like Piltover's upper class. In fact, she came to despise it, not only because of the natural contradiction that usually marks classes differences, but also because her parents died during the rebellion that Vander started and were killed by enforcers. In the meantime, Caitlyn became an enforcer.
I can only imagine the strings she pulled to have me posted here.
With her parents' protection, she wasn't part of any situations that could put her in danger, yet on her own she did start an investigation on Jinx, Violet's sister. Caitlyn is driven by a sense of justice and fairness, while Violet's primary focus was protecting Powder and not letting anyone get close enough to hurt them. It feels like every single odd is against them and they are meant to be, well, enemies. Except they are not. Story brought them together, brought them closer, and an immediate connection occurred. Their relationship became not only one based on trust and support, but also on intimacy. Initially having separate interests, Caitlyn going after the gemstone and Jinx, Violet trying to find Powder. What became one of the first major issues they had to overcome was lack of trust. Yet already in the very first scene where they met in prison, that obstacle was removed. It might not be part of what the script literally tells us, but visually it does happen. And it's actually Caitlyn, an enforcer, that takes the step towards trusting Violet, according to her best knowledge, a dangerous inmate. You can see her physically crossing a line that's set between them as she's dropping her first guard within minutes of having met Vi. Moments later, she crosses yet another major boundary. Even though she's part of the enforcement force, she releases Violet from prison without any direct orders.
In what mad world would I trust someone like you?
She asks. Yet it doesn't take long for her to risk her entire enforcer career, single most important thing in her life, based on a sole thing. Believing Violet is actually worthy of her trust. And that's not the first time that she's gonna risk her entire career for Violet. Caitlyn wouldn't have done it all had she intuitively did not feel the confidence, the certitude that Violet will not betray her, will not backstab her. And Violet was not going to. Partially, she does it also because of her integrity, her sense of justice. She realizes Vi has been regularly getting beaten up by the guards for a reason at this point not known to her, and she instantly feels sorry for her. She breaks Violet out also to protect her, and she doesn't believe prison is created to oppress. And protecting one another will be just as important in their relationship as trust and support. Violet reluctantly follows Caitlyn's steps, and soon after, Caitlyn follows Violet lead down the lanes. At this point, Violet could easily leave Caitlyn behind at any given moment, not help her out and search for powder on her own. Yet she feels a sense of obligation to her, not just because she let her out of prison or because she has proved links to her sister, but also because of their immediate and questionable connection that she acknowledged. A connection she decided to explore in a dominant, almost predatory way. A clear signal that attraction on her side is there. But could it be mutual? She pushed Caitlyn towards the wall and got very close to her. Caitlyn did not back away. Initially stunned, she doesn't try to get out of that situation, and after having, like a minor gay panic attack, she slowly starts to embrace it. A third line has been crossed, this time a physical one, and a declaration has been made. Violet surrounds Caitlyn with not one but both her arms, if you look closely, and doesn't allow for her to leave. And it's not like Caitlyn's trying to leave. Soon Violet received an answer to yet another question.
So what'll it be, man or woman?
Being gay often means that you actually have to find an answer to that question. Is the person that interests you somewhat interested in having a same-sex relationship? It doesn't come as an assumption like with straight couples. And that is exactly what Violet did.
You're hot, Cupcake.
She explored Caitlyn's interest and found out there is, in fact, a window there. Notice her face. She relaxes, lightly smiles, her body becomes less tense. It feels like for the very first time in a long time she felt some sort of excitement. In each relationship there's a moment that defines what it's going to be. If you send a signal, there could be something more. Once you cross that line, there's no going back. And this was a breaking point for Violet and Caitlyn. Ever since a little kid, Caitlyn wanted to become an enforcer. It was the essence of who she was. It carried the values her parents passed on to her, and it allowed her to seek justice. Part of being an enforcer is being able to handle a gun, to protect herself, others, which Caitlyn did, and quite well.
I'm an excellent shot.
Arcane yet again decided to plant a hint for us. When asked by Grayson,
Begs the question, young Kerman. What are you shooting for?
During a flashback scene, Caitlyn does not seem to have the answer yet. She looks lost and confused. But the show gives us one not too long later. She used her gun to save Violet. Apart from the also crucial in the relationship trust, another aspect was born. Supporting, protecting one another.
You gonna help me out, Cupcake?
Stop calling me that. My name is Caitlyn.
But you're so sweet.
Balance in their relationship surely shifted. It was no longer about trying to see through each other's intentions, whether it's okay to rely on that person or not. Are they going to betray me or not? Now they don't question it. They are counting on each other as well as allowing themselves to be playful. In any other relationship, this could have been considered rushed. I mean, it's been hours, not even days. But nothing feels rushed about them. The situation they found themselves in is dynamic, messy, and surrounded by so many potential enemies they had no other choice but to turn to one another, process their intention and feelings faster. Usually defensive Vi, when wounded, found herself in a situation when she had no other choice but to seek out Caitlyn's support. Her wound was far too serious for her to handle on her own. She led them both to a place she once considered safe, where she used to live with Vander, and collapsed, causing Caitlyn to immediately panic and seek out means to help, whatever these means might have been. Caitlyn was determined to save Violet no matter the cost, and the cost, the personal cost, would in fact be big. At first, after slight hesitation, she tried to tend to Vi's wounds, but Violet pushed her away. She was not used to that kind of affection after so many lonely years in prison, after having lost Powder. She was not ready to let anyone in because the risk of losing yet another person in her life was far too big. Caitlyn, however, was not discouraged.
You don't know anything about me.
When told she doesn't know anything about Violet, she does not give up. She continuously keeps pushing through Violet's walls. First in prison when she crossed the no entry line, and later on when she did not mind Violet's defensive mechanism.
I know you have your reservations about me. This only works if we can trust each other.
It doesn't work. It never has.
Violet says. But Caitlyn does not let go. Partially it's the way she was raised, partially it's the way she feels about Violet, and partially it's her ideals that won't let her stop.
Despite it all, I can tell. You have a good heart.
You've got a good heart.
Vander was like a father to Violet. She was looking up to him, and through the years she carried the burden of losing him.
You've got a good heart. Don't ever lose it, no matter how the world tries to break you.
When told she has a good heart by Caitlyn in the exact same words Vander used, it slowly started breaking Vi's final guards she built to keep Caitlyn away. When these walls come tumbling down, the title of this episode does mean literal walls that collapse, but without a doubt also these within Violet. Caitlyn progressed as well. At this point, losing Violet was not an option, so she was prepared to give up the very essence of who she was, part of what it meant to be an enforcer, her gun. While doing so, she did not hesitate, even though it was probably the single most important item she ever owned. At this point, no cost would be too big to save Violet from dying. Without not as much as a blink, she gave up her shotgun and hugged a stranger that helped her out as a thank you. Upon waking up, Violet hallucinated. Instead of seeing Caitlyn, she saw her mother, which accidentally very much resembled Caitlyn visually. Both a vision of Caitlyn looking so similar to her mother and her speaking the words of Vander, her adoptive father, meant that Violet found protection within Caitlyn, the type of protection only a parent can provide to their small, helpless child. For a long time, Violet was the one who had to protect others, Powder, Milo, Echo. She was the one others relied on. Then in prison she had to guard herself, she had to struggle, and allowing anyone else to give her shelter, support, was not an option. Not since Vander died, maybe not even since her parents died. Within days of meeting Vi, Caitlyn managed to not only gain Violet's trust, but also offer her a shoulder to rely on, and give her comfort, support, encouragement and consolation she missed for such a long time. And Violet finally accepted it. Within Caitlyn, she found the type of a protection she only had twice in her life, offered by her parents and offered by Vander. Violet allowed herself to be vulnerable around Caitlyn. At the same time, Caitlyn was no longer afraid. I mean, yeah, she did go through a bit of a gay panic again when she jumped straight away from Violet and immediately changed subject when their connection became direct, but before that, she held her face. A gesture only reserved for our loved ones, and calmed her down. Violet immediately responded to Caitlyn's touch, smell, closeness. Her breath slowed down as she realized she is receiving yet another Caitlyn's reply to a question she had before. Is she interested? She was. Or else she'd never go for a gesture as intimate as touching her face, being only centimeters apart from one another, brushing her fingers down her cheeks. If you follow Violet's gaze, it slowly dropped on Caitlyn's lips, eventually setting on her eyes, awaiting what's next. Before Caitlyn got scared and took a step back, because it was just a little bit too soon for her. Maybe she was even surprised herself. It was an unspoken moment of realization for both of them. Ever since that moment they became a team, and any separate efforts that might have had before now became a shared one. During Silco's confrontation that followed one of their most intimate moments, Violet gave Caitlyn time to figure out an escape route, surely being aware what she's trying to do, before helping her out and joining efforts to collapse, this time literal walls.
Who's she?
Who are you?
It's okay. She's a friend.
Upon meeting Jinx, Violet without a single doubt told Powder that Caitlyn's a friend.
Vi tells me I can trust you. You get a pass back topside, that's it. Let's go.
After getting captured by Echo, she told him Caitlyn can be trusted, which seemed to have surprised even Caitlyn. Any reservations Violet might have had before, they were gone. Maybe it's thanks to the moment they shared, or perhaps it's because Violet knew Caitlyn saved her life and sacrificed so much to do it. She could have even realized Caitlyn traded her beloved gun, as she wasn't carrying it around anymore. Caitlyn, on the other hand, still not being sure if Echo's a friend or not knowing if Violet's safe, offered herself up in order to free Vi, which is actually quite funny, and which she surely heard.
My hero.
But I thought they were hurting you.
In reply, allowing herself to be jokingly flirted, this time feeling confident it's okay to do so. When Echo accused Caitlyn's people of attacking the Downsiders, Violet immediately intervened, pushing Echo back, protectively putting her hand on Caitlyn's arm while doing so. When Caitlyn spoke about justice, the need for peace and healing, Violet was listening to her intensely, and you could literally see the moment she was falling for her more and more, but also getting to know the person Caitlyn really is. She might come from Piltover's upper class, she might have been raised in different circumstances, but they shared the same values, and slowly the differences, the obstacles between them, faded away. Notice how in every single scene Violet and Caitlyn share, they are together, next to one another. They always seem to be close enough to help each other if such need occurs. They even started mirroring their body language, which we only do with people we care about most. Until the moment Violet decided to head back and save Jinx, which in this very moment, it meant saying goodbye. Caitlyn was aware of it, and you could see how heartbroken she felt, how worried she was about the fact from this moment on she wouldn't be able to protect Violet. Even when hugging Echo goodbye, Vi was already looking at Caitlyn, aware what's coming. At this time not hiding anymore, their relationship is a mutual attraction, maybe at this point something more, something potentially great. Psychotherapist Georgia Doe analyzed the building attraction and relationship in that scene. When they hug together, it's this warm, tight embrace. They're holding onto each other, and Vi, her hand rubs softly on the back of Caitlyn's neck. That's another sign of romantic affection between both of them. And then that small nuzzle that Caitlyn does, that is to people that we really care about. Animals do that in order to send things, meaning this is mine, I want it. That even in this short amount of time they form this deep connection to one another, and it's gonna be very painful to have to part. Violet walks away without looking back. But before that, she says,
It's been real, Cupcake. Thanks for everything.
That short statement validates everything that's been happening between them. It's been happening. In case you aren't sure, know this has been real. Us are real. She also, finally, thanks her.
Do you ever say thank you?
Their separation did not last long. As soon as Violet realized Caitlyn might be in danger, she ran back towards her and placed her hand on her face, with instant feeling of relief reading all over her, being thankful that Caitlyn survived, that she's okay. Yet again, she helps her up and offers her shoulder for support. She doesn't back away even when she realizes Jinx disapproves, and when she opens fire towards them. Caitlyn tries to cover Violet, while Violet pushes Caitlyn away from danger. When walking her to the shelter, she naturally puts her hand on Caitlyn's leg, telling her she'll be right back, Caitlyn replying, okay. She has no reasons to question that. It feels like while initially there were contrary forces, now they became complementary, interconnected, interdependent, and against all odds they give rise to each other as they interrelate to one another, just like yin and yang. Earlier on in the season, wounded Violet took Caitlyn to the one place she could have called home. Now, wounded Caitlyn led Violet to her house. Here, Violet for the very first time could actually see the surrounding Caitlyn grew up in. The luxury, flowers, the elegant interiors, and most of all, love and care her parents had for her. Everything Violet did not have in her life anymore. Yet she did not back away, and she decided to go and give one last chance to the upper side, a cry for help from the Undercity. Here on the bed they shared one of their most intimate moments. Very much visually satisfying as well. Curled up, mirroring each other's positions, complementing one another like yin and yang, Violet opens up and shares most devastating story of her life, leaving Powder behind. Caitlyn hears her out. She does not judge, does not condemn her. She is there for her, and as she's reaching her hand towards Violet's face, this time she does not back away, does not hesitate. She touches her cheek and Violet immediately grabs her hand as if they've been doing this all their lives. Then looks at her and you don't doubt for a second. This is the look of love. In that scene, only their faces are sharp, edges are blurred out, and it tells us that to them, there is nothing else that matters in that moment other than being together in this intimate situation. Which leads us to one final moment of separation.
Do you know who made them?
No. Well,
Her name is Jinx.
After being heard by the council, Caitlyn yet again showed Violet her unlimited support, being ready to go as far as covering for Jinx, just because she's Violet's sister, risking her Enforcer career. Violet acknowledged that with an "it's okay" gesture. However, after their proposition was refused, Violet abruptly leaves the building. After getting a "I see she's important to you" nod from her mother, maybe even one acknowledging that they're an item, Caitlyn follows her.
what about us?
Caitlyn asks, naming what has been so far unsaid between them.
Oil and water.
She calls it. They do not mix, they need to stay separate. Caitlyn begs as she's so certain their feelings are mutual. She doesn't seem to believe Violet can simply give that up. Yet she does, leaving Caitlyn behind, not looking at her because, without a doubt, looking at her would make her want to change her mind. A moment Caitlyn replayed in her head under shower as the water kept running down her body, mixing with blood. Creators, unquestionably, are telling us here that Violet and Caitlyn are not oil and water. They never were. They are blood and water, and they do mix. You can even notice that visually Caitlyn's hair is blue and Violet's hair is red. Caitlyn replays the moment of goodbye in her head, reversing it, surely wishing she could go back and change it, make Violet stay. Final moments of the season presented us with a confrontation. Jinx, up until this moment openly jealous of Caitlyn, hostile, seeing her as a threat to her bond with Violet, places a tray right in front of Vi, suggesting her girlfriend's head might be under the cover. Violet breaks apart, her breath gets heavy, you can see the sheer feeling of terror on her face, and in the blink of a second, right before Jinx takes the cover up, her mind drifts back to the one moment she felt safe and happy, with Caitlyn looking at her. If you pay attention, Caitlyn in that memory looks actually different than she did during the actual scene. Her eyes seem to be bigger, her lips are parted. Some claim that scene was cut short, and we could actually see part of unused material here. But I think this is Violet's idealized memory of Caitlyn. Violet does everything in her power to save Caitlyn from the immediate threat. She offers Powder leaving together, which would ultimately mean parting with Caitlyn. Yet that's the sacrifice she'd be willing to make in order to keep her safe, even if that meant staying apart. After all, that is, in fact, what she has been doing throughout this whole season. That is what they have been both doing. Protecting each other, offering support, saving each other from any perils they might have encountered. Which you only do for the people you love. The intimacy, the boundaries they had to cross, distances they had to travel to, sacrifices they had to make for each other, all within days. That's spectacular. You rarely see such a wonderful example of building a relationship with as many details, believable elements, heart-wrenching moments, and ultimate respect for the viewers. Just like yin and yang, Caitlyn and Violet are meant to be together, as parts of a mutual whole. Yin is the black side, and yang is the white side. The relationship between yin and yang is often described in terms of sunlight playing over a mountain and a valley. Yin, literally the shady place, is the dark area occluded by the mountain's bulk, while yang, literally the sunny place, is the brightly lit portion. As the sun moves across the sky, yin and yang gradually trade places with each other. One does not function without the other. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Do stick around, there's more videos like that one coming. Stay safe. This was Ola from Stop Meow channel.